Lily's going to get her breath, brace, forearms vertical, and she's going to think about pulling her bicep to her ear as she presses up. Good. Notice that. Okay, today we are going to go over the seated dumbbell overhead press, and welcome to our home. So if you're like us, you're not going to have all the equipment that you may have available at a normal gym. So you're going to work with us, and we're going to help you with sharing what we're looking for with the equipment we're going to use. So for the seated overhead press, a chair would work great. However, one thing to be cognizant of is that chairs with like high arms don't always work so good. So if you feel like your core stability is on point and really solid, you can go with just a stool or a bench or even like a stack of pillows. So Lily's going to grab you something, but also a stack of pillows like this would work just fine. So one thing to do here when you're doing a seated exercise is you actually want to position the point to go between the legs, okay? So as I sit down here, as the point goes between the legs, I actually have much more room for my legs to move about. I'm going to be able to achieve a much more neutral and natural position for my hips, low back, and femurs, as opposed to if I'm here, I kind of have these points sticking into my hamstrings. It's kind of weird, and yeah, pro tip, turn it so the point's out. And then Lily's going to grab some dumbbells for you. Okay, we're going to show you the single arm version first here. Okay, so one thing to note is that Lily's going to take a big 360-degree breath. Okay, Lily, you can relax this arm real quick. Like we mentioned before, because there's no back here, that means that the core is going to have to really provide more of that stability. Okay, when you don't have that external stability, you need increased effort on that internal stability. One thing to note is that that may result in you having to use less weight than you normally would, but that's okay because you're just doing a different exercise. You're not using less weight for the same exercise. Hope that makes sense.
Just to add to that a little bit, John told me this one time and it was so helpful in my body that you're creating tension with your whole body. So my feet are grounding into the floor, there's some gentle pressure through my legs into the ground, and all of this allows me to actually have a stable core. So we're not just sitting here, right? We're connected to the ground so that we can move off of it.
Yeah. In order for you to get the movement where you want to try to create tension everywhere else in the body so that that's locked in. The more stable points you have throughout the body, the more power and strength you're going to be able to have out of the actual joint you want to move. Just like the old analogy, you can't shoot a cannon on a canoe. You need the entire body to be utilized as a stable base, even though it's just the arm that's doing the movement. So with that in mind, Lily can bring that back up. So she's going to get a nice brace. One thing we want to focus on here, as with all our pressing and rowing exercises, is the form, okay? Gravity is exerting, you can just relax. Gravity is exerting a downward force into Lily's arm. So we want to have the form match the force of gravity, okay? Since gravity is going straight down, and the form going straight up. A lot of times you'll see people doing presses like this, okay? This is a tricep extension. Okay, this is elbow extension. We don't need to train that directly with this exercise. We're going to get a little bit with the forearm vertical still, but this forearm vertical is going to help shift the load to the serratus and the delt, and also help decrease the activation of that upper trap, because that upper trap can pull that shoulder up there, but we actually want the lat and the serratus to help ground the scapula and ground that shoulder and allow the deltoid to press that arm up. Okay, so with that being said, Lily's going to get her breath, brace, forearms vertical, and she's going to think about pulling her bicep to her ear as she presses up. Good. Notice that Lily this whole time is trying really hard to keep that forearm vertical. Okay, that way she's feeling the tension here, a little bit through the clavicular fibers, the upper pec fibers, as well as the serratus. As Lily's pulling down, okay, you can press, Lily. She's thinking about really trying to pull and turn that scapula down and inwards towards that spine. What that's going to do is that shoulder blade swings down. It's going to help open up room on the front of this glenohumeral joint and allow for that forearm and upper arm to try to maintain as good a position as they can throughout the largest range of motion as they can. Really, can I have you turn around and we're going to do reps like that? And you can use your left arm here, you want to mix it up here. Okay? But one thing I want to watch is Lily's shoulder blade here. Okay, so press up.
I'm gonna actually go down first.
So there, you can see there that Lily's shoulder blade is angled down and in. Okay, that's that depression and retraction I was talking about earlier. Okay, so there's the bottom, there's the spine. Okay, as Lily presses. Okay, now there's the bottom, and here's the spine. Can we see how big of a change that is? If that doesn't move, Lily, you can keep pressing through this. If that scapula doesn't move, we have poor scapulohumeral rhythm. It's going to throw off the way that cleноhumeral joint or shoulder joint is. Okay? If you don't want impingement and you want plenty of room for the structures of the shoulder to move without getting pain, discomfort, or decreased performance, this scapula has to be where you're putting all of your mental effort. You want to think about pulling it down and in, wrapping it down and in, and then as you press, pushing it out and around. If you're a training partner, one great thing to do here is you can help this person, okay? Help your partner. Get here, and as they press, help them swing that scapula up. Come back down, pull it down, press, and help them out. Okay.
I just want to add one thing there that so often when I personally did this exercise, I would relax on the way down and then put all my energy into the way up. The way that we're training your shoulder blade to work means that the way down is almost harder than the way back up because you're having to eccentrically control all of those muscles together. So on the way down, I'm not just letting my arm flop. I am super actively trying to take that shoulder blade and draw it down on my back so that all of this tissue is getting as compressed as humanly possible without shifting side to side, without letting my lumbars do all of the motion. I'm still stable in my core and I'm seeing how much movement I can actually get from the shoulder blade. And let me tell you, it is challenging when you're doing it right.
That's a great point. If you're just thinking about hoping that gravity is going to do it for you, it's not going to work. You really want to focus on thinking about that AC joint, okay, basically just the bony tip of the shoulder. And you want to think about the base of your neck. As I'm pulling down, I'm actively trying to pull those 2 points apart and really try to pull the bottom of that scapula down, okay? One great thing to think about when bench pressing is rowing the bar to your chest. One great thing to think about overhead pressing is doing like the world's perfect lat pull down to your side. And then, like Lily said, not resting, not taking the break, reversing that, but keeping all the tension there throughout that pull transition is so important.
And our shoulders have a very interesting proprioceptive relationship to our body, so this is a fantastic exercise to video yourself and see the differences between side and ask yourself, am I really moving that shoulder blade as much as I need to have a healthy shoulder?
Lily, can you turn to the side?
Yes.
One thing you'll see a lot of people, you don't need to use the arm or the dumbbell, they'll press here. Okay, one thing is the bottom of the scapula is still at the bottom. Okay, like we showed before, it needs to be up here at the top. This is causing a massive amount of compression and impingement right here. Okay, this is not very healthy for your shoulder. If this is you, okay, we mentioned earlier that gravity works in a straight line down. Okay, so if gravity's at that dumbbell there, lean back. Set yourself up on an incline press. Make this vertical. Do your mobility to try to get here and slowly just bring the back of that bench up over time. Don't go into a range where you can't get your shoulder. Just train the range where you can get your shoulder and spend your time doing your mobility work to increase that range if you want to do overhead pressing in the future. Nothing wrong with it. Just meet your body where you're at. There's no sense in causing damage and creating a problem that you're going to have to fix later on.
And I just want to remind you of the most common way that people like to compensate that I see in this movement. And hint, it's like all compensations that people love to just bring it into their lumbar spine. Okay, so Your back needs a fucking break. So you need to use your breath to keep your low back stable. The opening that's happening in my chest is coming from my spine up here in between the shoulder blades, not down at the lumbar back. Okay? That motion versus that motion.
And it's totally normal, right? Your brain is here, and it's thinking, okay, shoot, I need to get here. The problem is I can't actually move my shoulder from here to here. What can I do? I can do that. That got my arm vertical. The goal is not to get the arm vertical. The goal is to get the shoulder in full shoulder flexion with elbow extension. Okay?
And keeping good form in the rest of your body.
Yeah. Yeah, that too.